Maybe I'm like wrong then. Yeah, you're right. Prabhu.
It could be 13.
You finish only up to 14. Then you finish only up to 14.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to start with 15.
Okay, 15. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Kvachit asadya graham davavat priyartha viduram asukhodarkam.
Kuchidasadya griham davavat priyartha viduram asukhodarkam.
Ashukodarkam.
Shokagnina dahyamano bhrisham nirvedam upagachati.
Tokagnina dahyamano
Dayamano
nirvedam
Sham Nirvedam Upagachati.
Yes.
I'll read Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Translation purport plus divine grace from Prabhupada. Translation. In this world, family life is exactly like a blazing fire in the forest. There is not the least happiness, and gradually one becomes more and more implicated in unhappiness. In household life, there is nothing favorable for perpetual happiness. Being implicated in home life, the conditioned soul is burned by the fire of lamentation. Sometimes he condemns himself as being very unfortunate, and sometimes he claims that he suffers because he performed no pious activities in his previous life. Purport. In the Guru Ashtaka, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura sung, Samsara Davanala, Lita Loka, Tranaya Karunya, Ganatvam. A life in this material world is exactly like a blazing forest fire. No one goes in to set fire in the forest, yet the fire takes place. Similarly, everyone wants to be happy in the material world, but miserable conditions of material life simply increase. Sometimes a person caught in the blazing fire of material existence condemns himself, but due to his bodily consumption, he cannot get out of the entanglement, and thus he suffers more and more. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Sansara davanala leedhaloka. Tranaya karunya ghanaghanatvam. Praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya vande guru Shri Charanarvindam. This material world is a forest fire. In the forest fire, one cannot, if a house is on fire, one can throw water, one can get out, run away somewhere. But in a forest fire, no one can do anything. In a forest fire, you cannot throw water and you cannot run. There is no escaping forest fire. Forest fire is just there. It's just there, it will finish you off. So, this household life is exactly the same. A person who has taken birth in this material world, actually, if you remember the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the teachings of Lord Kapila, we were seeing the same thing. The living entity who has taken birth in this material world has taken birth into a forest fire. There is no escape. There is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, there is Adhyatmika Klesha, there is Adhibhautik Klesha, there is Adhidevika Klesha. Where will one escape? One wants to have some happiness in this life. But wherever one tries to seek happiness, there is only misery. So, for example, Prabhupada gives this example that a small child only wants to play, but he is forced to go to the school. Then after school, he grows up. So he has to work. He has to work very hard. He wants to enjoy life, but for that insignificant enjoyment that he's trying, he has to work very hard to sustain himself. And trying to sustain himself like this, one eventually realizes that his body has grown old, it has grown weak. He loses all his wealth, he loses all his relatives. He has nothing worth left for. Old people are actually happy to die at times because old age is so miserable. So, where is happiness in this world? It's just Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. The more one tries to seek happiness, the more miserable one will become. Dvaite Bhadra Bhadra Jnana, Saba Manodharma. This is all just our imagination. Ei Bhala, Ei Manda, Ei Saba Bhram. This is all illusion. When everything is going to end in death, then where is actually any pleasure in that? Now in the movie, they will show that there is some happy ending, hero, heroine get together. But we also know that this is just an illusion. They will not get together forever. They will die also, even if they get together. So that is material world. So this material world is an elaborate illusion. And one has to escape it if one wants to live peacefully. So Tranaya Karunya Ghana Ghanatvam. The spiritual master is like a cloud. So a forest fire can only be extinguished by rains. There is no other means. There's no amount of water one can throw to extinguish a forest fire. Only a massive rain cloud can put out a forest fire. So exactly like that, that's the position of a spiritual master. And in this world also we see, every source of happiness that we are seeking is actually ending in some misery. Education is a misery. Profession is a misery. Family life is always miserable. As soon as one becomes educated and grown up, one realizes that one's parents are old. And therefore, to escape the misery of their death, one raises his own family. And one has to undergo so many tribulations in raising the family. So much of hard work, so much of austerity, so much of pain one has to undertake. And then one realizes that one has himself grown old. So when the children are growing, he himself grows old and he has to die. So in this way, miseries will always exist. So what is advised here is that one should take the shelter of a spiritual master. So the spiritual master, so the spiritual master is like a forest fire. He opens our eyes. Om Agyana Timiran Dhasya Gyananjana Sharakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. So I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. That is the spiritual master. One who opens. So the spiritual master enlightens us to the fact that this material life is like a dark well. And he tries to pull us out of it. He opens our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. And what is that torchlight? Vasudeva Sarvamiti Mahatma Sudurlabha. That one has to worship Krishna. So the more one tries to enjoy this world, the more one will suffer. The only way to escape this is to surrender to Krishna. So even if you take like a little bit of enjoyment from this world, equal proportion of misery is also going to come. So it is always your choice. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Just to clarify, this applies to only those people or those grihasthas who are seeking happiness in this family life, isn't it? Or also to sort of devotees?
Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. The converse of this theorem is also correct. To the degree one tries to enjoy material nature, one will have to suffer. So even if one is a devotee grihastha, proportional misery will come. So a devotee may not grossly want to enjoy this world. A devotee may not want to visit Switzerland and Hollywood and these places and enjoy Copacabana and Las Vegas. So his misery would be lesser. But a devotee grihastha is still in a grihastha condition. That means he's trying to enjoy home life. So he'll have to suffer to that degree. See, if you see great souls, if you see Shukadev Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, or if you see Adi Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, why did they take sannyas at such an early age? So because they know that even a hint of enjoyment in this material world is going to be a source of great misery. One will be forced to suffer. So they don't accept it. Okay, this is an illusion, so why bother with this illusion? They all took sannyas when they were young boys. Sannyas, they didn't even take brahmacharya. So whatever degree one wants to enjoy, one will have to suffer proportionately. Like if you want to eat in a 5-star, if you want to eat in say Oberoi Palace, you will have to pay some 20,000 rupees for your lunch. You can eat at 10 rupee vada pav also. So whatever you want to eat, you'll have to pay the price.
Yeah.
So if one wants too much enjoyment, there will be too much suffering also. So text,
Thank you,
text. Hare Krishna. Yes, text 16. क्वचित काल विषमित राजकुल राक्षसास प्रहत प्रियत्म धनासु प्रमृतक इव विगत जीव लक्षण आस्ते.
क्वचित् काल विषमित राजकुल रक्षसापहरित प्रियतम धनासु प्रमृतक इव विगत जीव लक्षण आस्ते.
Yes.
Married?
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, translation purport by Sri Prabhupada. Translation. Government men are always like carnivores, demons called Rakshasas, man-eaters. Sometimes these government men turn against the conditioned soul and take away all his accumulated wealth. In breath of his life, reserved wealth, the conditioned soul loses all enthusiasm. Indeed, it is as though he loses his life. Report. The word Rajkula, Rakshas, is very significant. Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled about 5,000 years ago. Yet, government men are referred to as Rakshasas or carnivores, demons. If government men are opposed to the person, that person will be bereft of all his riches, which is has accumulated with great care over a long period of time. Actually, no one wants to pay income tax. Even government men themselves try to avoid these taxes. But as unfavorable time comes, taxes are exacted forcibly, and the taxpayers are become very most. Thank you, Bhavitana.
Hare Krishna. So Rajakula Rakshasa. 5,000 years ago was the beginning of Kali Yuga, and there itself, Vyasadeva had compiled this Bhagavatam, and he called them Rakshasas. So if you see, for example, in today's age also, you pay income tax, and if you have too much income, then you'll pay wealth tax. Then when you go out to the market, anything that you buy, you have to pay some sales tax or some VAT there. If you buy a house, then you pay property tax and stamp duty. So you are buying a house with the income that has been already taxed, and the government will still charge a tax on that. So there will be a tax over tax. In this way, the government is always like Rakshasa. They're just they're like parasites. They're just trying to suck your life out. So, and you see, what does the government do? Prabhupada elaborates further in one of his lectures. The government will simply use this money to buy more weapons and favor the rich people. Eventually, they are Rakshasa. They just want to fight and capture other people also, so that they can extract more taxes from the other persons also. They will take your tax money. They'll recruit big armies. Then they'll conquer somebody else and they'll extract taxes from them also. So their only business is to become powerful and extract taxes. This is what modern governments are all about. Rajakula Rakshasa. So everyone is trying to avoid these taxes. The government themselves also. That's why they make such laws so that they can themselves evade the taxes, and ordinary man cannot escape. So, but the government itself, by nature, is so cruel that when one is not in the government, then he himself becomes a victim of the government. So this all becomes a cause of lamentation. If you think of it this way, actually, according to Christian law also, tax means tithe, 10%. That's your tax. But the government will charge you 30-40%, and if you include all the taxes, you are actually paying around 50 to 60% of your income in taxes only. Whatever little bit you have, that gives you the illusion of being rich or having your own money. But government can, create some kind of illusion and take that away also. For example, modern day governments emphasize that people should invest in stock markets. They create a huge propaganda. Buy mutual funds, invest in this life insurance policies, market-linked policies. And in this way, they entice people to invest more and more into stock markets. And at an appropriate time, they will collapse the stock market and take away all the money. In 2008, when the stock crisis came, the stock crash crisis, where did the money go? Who took all the money? Everyone lost. So who won? All this money disappeared into the hands of the very few rich people, rich Rakshasas who are ruling, who are supporting the government. In this way, the government robs the ordinary men. It gives them an illusion of happiness and then eventually cheats them. Because their objective is not, this is not Varnashram Dharma. Their objective is not to take people back to Godhead, but just to enjoy this material world at the cost. That's why we say ruling party. So who's ruling? Government is supposed to serve the people. But nowadays we say the government is ruling because they are ruling. You are under their power. You are living because the government has allowed you to live. The day government decides, they can simply squish you out. So that is modern day government. So one need not be too enthusiastic about this party or that party or this democracy or that democracy. Actually, this is all Rakshasa rule. You are just like lucky that the government has not noticed you. The day it notices, you will be squished out. You have to be very, very careful. That's why you have to take shelter of Krishna as soon as possible. Kunti Maharani is also praying the same way. That we were under so many distresses. We were, we faced threat from a burning house, from a wicked assembly, from man-eaters. And yet you saved us in all conditions. And now when all the troubles are gone, you are also doing. So I am praying therefore that we forever remain in these kind of troubles. So you see, so one should not become morose thinking that the government is like this, but rather one should take this as an opportunity to take shelter of Krishna. Even if one is not very advanced in bhakti, one can still think of all the troubles of the material world and try to take shelter of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, Prabhupada is writing that, but at unfavorable times, income taxes are exacted forcibly. What does he really mean by these unfavorable times?
So whether you are in debt or you are in, some kind of bankruptcy, the taxes will always remain outstanding. In previous ages, this was not the case. But at any time is actually unfavorable time. But even if you are in unfavorable time, the government will take it from you. See,
so he doesn't mean that astrologically unfavorable for that person. Nothing of that sort.
So what Prabhupada is generally saying is that, even if you are in an unfavorable time, they will take taxes. They're not going to spare you. You may have some trouble. You may have to marry off your children, or you may have to buy a house. Government doesn't care. It just wants its share of money. Government acts like a dasyu, a dacoit.
Taxes and cesses on that.
Except when you're bankrupt, they can't.
Yeah, because when you are bankrupt, then all your property belongs to the government.
Yes.
The government will sell your house, auction your house, and take their taxes.
Lucky proclaimed taxes have not come so far. You can start any time.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Krishna. Okay, text 17.
Yeah.
Kadachin mano rathopagat pitra pita mahadya asatsad iti swapna nivriti lakshanam anubhavati.
Kadachin mano rathopagat pitra pita mahadya asatsad iti swapna nivriti lakshanam anubhavati.
Yes, please. This is a very important translation, very important verse.
May I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Translation. Sometimes the conditioned soul imagines that his father or grandfather has again come in the form of his son or grandson. In this way, he feels the happiness one sometimes feels in a dream, and the conditioned soul sometimes takes pleasure in such mental concoctions. Purport. Due to ignorance of the real existence of the Lord, the conditioned soul imagines many things. Influenced by fruitive activity, he comes together with his relatives, fathers, sons, and grandfathers, exactly as straws gather together in a moving stream. In a moment, the straws are thrown everywhere, and they lose contact. In conditional life, the living entities temporarily, with many other conditioned souls, they gather together as family members, and the material affection is so strong that even after a father or grandfather passes away, One takes pleasure in thinking that they return to the family in different forms. Sometimes this may happen, but in any case, the conditioned soul likes to take pleasure in such concocted thoughts. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. তোমারে লইতে আমি হাইন্দু অবতার আমি বিনা বন্ধু আর কে আছে তোমার Mahaprabhu is singing like this. Ami bina bandhu aar ke ache tomar. Who is yours in this world? Actually, there is no one who belongs to us in this world. The so-called mother, father, husband, wife, brother, sister, daughter, son, they are just illusions. But why do these illusions appear so real to us? Because as living entities, as Jivatma, living souls, it is our nature to love. But love is between Krishna and the living entity. There is no permanent relationship between living entities. It's only in Vaikuntha, but not in the material world. There is no permanent relationship. We see two examples actually. One is from the story of Chitraketu, Chitraketu's son, and another one is the story of Srivas Thakur's son. So Chitraketu is also lamenting. When his son dies, he's also lamenting. So Narad Muni and Angira Rishi, by their mystic power, they bring the child back. So the child speaks to father. The father is happy. He says, welcome back, my child. So the child is bewildered. He says, who are you? So the king says, I am your father and this is your mother. But the child stays bewildered. He says, I have had so many mothers and fathers. Which father and which mother are you talking of? When he hears these words, then Chitraketu's illusion breaks. And then he understands the reality of this material world. And he immediately becomes free from this illusion. He leaves his kingdom. He attains the lotus. He's given a mantra to recite by Angira Rishi. And he gets a darshan of Lord Sankarshan within 10 days. And after that, he leaves his home, kingdom, everything. And he wanders all over the universe reciting the glories of Lord Sankarshan. So that's the story of Chitraketu. Similarly for Srivas Thakur. Srivas Thakur's son also passes away and Lord Chaitanya brings him back. And when the son comes back, he immediately speaks the words of wisdom. He says, so many births I have taken, but now in this life I have had the great association of having darshan of Lord Chaitanya. So saying like this, the child offers obeisances to the Lord. And then he continues his journey. So we can see actually that this illusion is so real that we become very deeply attached. But this is an illusion nonetheless. It is just an illusion. And that's the whole bhakti process. Forget about, Braj Bhav, Gopi Bhav, or this liberation, that liberation. All that is nonsense. If you are still attached to your husband, wife, mother, father, you have no knowledge at all. Complete ignorance. Everything else is just on a theoretical platform. In this lifetime, if you can become free from this illusion of so-called bodily relationships, that is a great achievement. That would be a great achievement. That is tamas. That is the timirandhasya that we are talking about. Thinking that I am this body and these relationships are mine. That is our illusion. Forget about the great topics of Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhav or Prem or Asakti. All that is much, much, much later. Before that, one has to be situated on the platform of liberation. And that liberation means becoming free from these bodily attachments. So sometimes living entities, we think that, oh, now my father has come back in this family, mother has come back, because we are very strongly attached. In fact, if you see any relationships in this world, you'll see that, all of it is simply an illusion. All of it. This is just, because we are at one point we are attached to Krishna. Now we have tried to, now we have forgotten Krishna, so we are becoming attached to other living entities. So this illusion continues. Okay, I lost my father, now I'll try to get a son, and maybe my father will come back. It may happen if the attachment is too strong, but then again it is also useless. Suppose once father dies and he begets a son, then the father may come back as a son. But what will be the use? Now the son is lamenting for father, Then later on, the father will lament for the son because the same father has now become a son. Son has become father. And again, that separation will come. How long can this go on? This eventually karma will drift people away. So why bother? Our real relationship is with Krishna, and we have to revive that. Then and then only then will be truly happy. Hare Krishna. Yes. Any questions or comments here? So meditate on these verses very carefully, because these are the pains that every one of us is going to face. Every single one. We are facing and we are going to face. Yeah. So text 18. क्वचित् ग्रहाश्रम कर्म चोदनाति भरगिरिम आरुरक्षमाणो लोक व्यसन कर्षित मनाः कंटक शर्करा क्षेत्रम प्रविशन् इव सीदति.
क्वचित् गृहाश्रमे कर्मचोदनाति भरगिरिम् आरुरुक्षमाणो लोकव्यसनकर्षितमनः कण्टकशर्कराक्षेत्रं प्रविशन् इव सीदति. May I read from here?
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Translation. In household life, one is ordered to execute many yajnas and fruitive activities, especially the Vivaha Yajna, the marriage ceremony for sons and daughters, and the sacred thread ceremony. These are all the duties of a grihastha, and they are very extensive and troublesome to execute. They are compared to a big hill over which one must cross when one is attached to material activities. A person desiring to cross over these ritualistic ceremonies certainly feels pains, like the piercing of thorns and pebbles endured by one attempting to climb a hill. Thus, the conditioned soul suffers unlimitedly. Purport. There are many social functions for keeping a prestigious position in society. In different countries and societies, there are various festivals and rituals. In India, the father is supposed to get his children married. When he does so, his responsibility to the family is complete. Arranging marriages is very difficult, especially in these days. At the present moment, no one can perform the proper rituals of sacrifice, nor can one afford to pay for the marriage ceremony of sons and daughters. Therefore, householders are very much distressed when they are confronted by these social duties. It is as though they were pierced by thorns and hurt by pebbles. Material attachment is so strong that despite the suffering, one cannot give it up. Prahlad Maharaj therefore recommends Bhagavatam 7.5.5. Yatvatmapatam grihamandakupam vanam gato yad hridayam. The so-called comfortable family position is compared to a dark well in a field. If one falls in a dark well covered by grass, his life is lost, despite his cry for rescue. Highly advanced spiritualists therefore recommend that one should not enter the Grihastha ashram. It is better to prepare oneself in the Brahmacharya ashram for austerities and remain a pure brahmachari throughout one's life, so that one will not feel the piercing thorns of material life in the Grihastha ashram. In the Grihastha ashram, one has to accept invitations from friends and relatives and perform ritualistic ceremony. By so doing, one becomes captivated by such things, although he may not have sufficient resources to continue them. To maintain the Grihastha lifestyle, one has to work very hard to acquire money. Thus, one is implicated in material life and he suffers the conflict. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Yatvatmapatam grahamandakupam vanam gato yad dharim ashrayat. See, now this may sound very, harsh and painful, but like they say in Hindi, one cannot ride two boats together. Comforts of homely life, comforts of family attachment, and spiritual advancement, they don't go together. It's impossible. If one thinks, okay, many devotees think this way, that, it's okay, in this lifetime, let me just enjoy family life. Next birth, I'll be a renunciate. It's not going to happen. You want to advance in bhakti, you have to do now. Whatever you are now, you'll be in the next birth also. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Whatever you are now, you'll be in the next birth also. In this birth, if you are lusting after men or women, next birth also you'll do the same. This birth, if you want too much money, next birth you will be born with the same desire. That's not going to change. You have to change it. Like Mahatma Gandhi would say, be the change you want to see. You have to bring that change. Please remember, whatever you want from spiritual life, you only have to do. We can't just drift along on autopilot and think Krishna will do it for us. That's not going to happen. Krishna has already done it. He has sent Srila Prabhupada, he has given us the books. Now we have to detach ourselves. So, I think last week Keshavanand Prabhu was giving this example from Ramayana that there's a debate in the assembly of Dashrath Maharaj as to what is the real nature of Maya. So some sages are saying that Maya actually captures us. Some sages are saying no, that we capture Maya. So there's a debate. So Ashtavakra Rishi comes there. And Ashtavakra Rishi, what he does is the same question is put in front of him. So instead of answering this question, he hugs a pole, a pillar, and then he starts shouting, let me go, let me go. Oh, pillar, let me go. So everyone starts laughing. But Dashrath Maharaj is very serious. This is the right answer. Maya is there. We are holding on to that Maya. So you think in this life you have virtuous children and a pure wife and you are happy. You can't let go. Next birth will remain the same. You've done some devotional service, so next birth you'll have a more beautiful wife, more virtuous children. When will you renounce? There will be a time when you have to do it yourself. If it is too difficult in this birth, it will remain difficult in the next birth also. That's why Grahastha Ashram is called Andhakupam, blind well. In a blind well, you can't even see where is the wall, how to hold it. And no one can see you lying there. Actually, if you see when someone falls in a well, no one can bring him out. Wells don't have any steps or anything. They're just vertical walls. If someone falls inside a well, then he's done for. One cannot come out. So that is what Grahastha Ashram is. So Srila Prabhupada also explains this. He says that although Shastras allow sense gratification under certain rules and regulations, it is recommended that one avoids even those. Because senses and mind are too impetuous and no one knows at what time will they actually lose control. And one may become implicated in sinful reaction. So if you see, Grahastha life is so painful. People get married, then they raise children, then they become happy. And what are children really? Children are no better than animals. They have no intelligence. So one has to work very hard to sustain them. One becomes captivated by their beautiful sounds and their bodily gestures. And one becomes captivated. But actually one is wasting his important time. The important time that one could have utilized in remembering Krishna is now spent in remembering the activities of the child. And as the child grows up, one has to work very hard to sustain a child. In India, I remember once, I don't know, with one devotee, we were sitting and we were calculating that to raise a child from the age of a baby to an adult is more expensive than buying a Rolls-Royce car. So you can imagine how much money you have to spend and what do you get in return? By the time the child grows up and is able to sustain you, you are too old to do anything. Your death is already near. So why waste time like this? One should remember Krishna. One should spend all his time in remembering Krishna. So Graham Andhakupam, Grahastha Ashram, Grahastha Ashram, staying in a household and practicing austerity. So that's the only difference between a Grahastha and a sannyasi. Sannyasi practices austerity in the wild. A Grahastha performs austerities in a homestead. But there should be no difference. In Srila Prabhupada's times, Grahasthas were working as hard as sannyasis. There was hardly any difference. So that is the standard of Grahastha Ashram. But if one lives at home and enjoys life, okay, I'll buy a new house, new car, my children will go to some international school, they will study mundane nonsense, and then I'll feel happy. That is Graha Medhi. Yan Maithuna Adi, Graha Medhi Sukham Hi Tucham. Yan Maithuna Adi, sex and related paraphernalia. Maithuna Adi. Yan Maithuna Adi Sukham Hi Tucham. So Maithunadi Sukham Hi Tucham, it's an inferior happiness. Me, my child, this is what is me and my sex life, that's all. one has to avoid this if one wants to go back to Krishna. Dibhara lalasa jai iti uti dhai, Shishnodara parayana Krishna nahi paye. Hare Krishna. Yes. Any questions or comments? Okay, then we stop here. We continue with text 19 tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Prabhu.
Then look